So this made the news recently in the past few days. It's from Rock Paper Shotgun. So this was the news. I'm sure a lot of you probably have already noticed it, but PayPal has been rendered unavailable on Steam. In the past few days, it has been rendered unavailable on Steam. And there is a reason for that. Apparently, PayPal has been told, this is the important part, Valve has confirmed that this withdrawal of support for Steam transactions is by one of PayPal's acquiring banks, okay? So, Steam was apparently told by one of these acquiring banks that it's over the MasterCard thing. It's over the MasterCard thing again. The question that came into my mind was, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And I think I found out why. And digging a little, I have an inkling of how this happens, okay? Start off with, MasterCard claims they had nothing to do with this. This whole PayPal incident, they claim they have nothing to do with this. Okay? Collective Shout, as always, will claim that they had nothing to do with this. That it was all the fault of the so-called acquiring banks. And acquiring banks basically is just all the banks that is partnered with MasterCard. That long story short, that's all that it means. So if you have like a bank credit card and you see the word MasterCard at the bottom right, that bank is an acquiring bank. But a little bit of details. Let me open a PowerPoint. You have to remember a bit of general information. MasterCard and Visa are considered merchants. And basically they facilitate the flow of money, credit, etc. Okay? Long story short, between bank and, for this case, another corp. So let's say, for argument's sake, well, they're the reason you can use credit cards, basically. Use credit cards, debit cards, what have you. Long story short, it is just a means, but they have a lot of power, that's the thing. Because of MasterCard and Visa's logistical system of how they move money and credit around, they have a lot of power over banks and over corporations. So there's an odd little relationship between all of these entities. Because banks care a lot about having the support of Visa, MasterCard, or both. Because without them, they cannot have a smooth inflow-outflow of money between themselves as banks and various clients who deposit and withdraw money on the daily, or basically the usage of credit. So yeah, MasterCard and Visa are considered quite important. So important, in fact, that MasterCard and Visa have the power to influence the decision making of these banks. And these banks, probably some of you will already suspect, they're also considered as acquiring banks, i.e. banks that have a direct partnership with either MasterCard or Visa. And one of the things is, you go back to this part, brand damaging transactions. You already saw this, right? We already talked about how two-faced and hypocritical the whole system is. But it's important to know, this rule applies not just to the corporation, but it also applies to the banks. Because It can be very damaging to a bank in partnership with either Visa or MasterCard if they lose the partnership with Visa or MasterCard. You have to understand this very, very carefully. It is very, very damaging for a bank to lose Visa or MasterCard as a means of mercantile of their cash or credits. Which means, back to this. MC Visa can inflict immense pressure on banks. This, for instance, this specific policy applies to the banks. It applies to those banks as well. Okay? It applies to those banks as well. How does it apply to those banks? Like, this rules literally is going to force banks to behave in such a way, because this is basically saying, oh, banks, if you don't do things according to our terms of service, we will pull out our support from you. And of course, they will scare the banks. And what happens? Before I repeat myself a little too much. Banks have sway on PayPal. Because at the end of the day, banks also deal with the movements of cash, movements of money with PayPal. PayPal is a middleman. PayPal is basically a middleman between some outlets, for instance, in this case, Steam, to communicate with a bank when they want to transfer cash. So someone wants to buy a game. They don't have enough Steam wallet. So they use PayPal. PayPal, you already know how PayPal works, right? You'll probably already know how PayPal works. So I'm sorry, Shai, you use PayPal, PayPal will say, hey bank, go to this account of this individual who has our PayPal services linked to your specific client's account. He needs to withdraw a specific amount of money from that bank to pay for the game they want to buy. So that's how it works. That's how it works. Banks have a lot of sway on PayPal. And of course, the entire business of PayPal is communication with the banks. If banks suddenly say that we don't want to have anything to do with you, PayPal, anymore, PayPal is in trouble. Or in the case, if a bank tells PayPal, for instance, that, oh, you are a middleman, you're also a middleman for Steam. Oh, we're not going to do business with Steam anymore, so there's no point for you to be a middleman between us and Steam, because we are not even using your services. So suddenly there's no PayPal. There's no PayPal for Steam. So what it really becomes is, MasterCard claims they have nothing to do with PayPal services being withdrawn from Steam. That is what they claim, okay? That is what they claim. But, of course, they're not obligated to tell you the whole story. They do not want to tell you the whole story. They hope you will remain ignorant of this entire part that I just told you. So long story short, this is the dynamics between, let's say, MasterCard. MasterCard has sway on the banks, or in this case, acquiring banks. Acquiring banks just mean a bank that is in partnership with MasterCard, for argument's sake. And the acquiring banks has sway on PayPal. And PayPal in turn links to Steam. Okay? So let's say the acquiring bank is still willing to do business with Steam. Okay? That means PayPal will still be usable on Steam. If even one acquiring bank does not want to do business with Steam, the entire PayPal system also collapses. Apparently, from what I have gathered, and I could be wrong, you do not need every single acquiring bank that has a partnership with MasterCard to say they are not doing business with Steam anymore for PayPal to withdraw its services from Steam. You just need enough acquiring banks to say they stop doing business with Steam. And it seems there may not be very clear information on which specific banks were pressured to pull back their services for Steam. And I'm not sure if the information will ever come out. We can make guesses because currently the banks, the way Steam still allows the usage of payments using the big currency. So US dollars, Australian dollars, UK pounds, euros, and all of that. But all of the smaller currencies, like for instance, the Indonesian rupiah, baht, Filipino pesos, all of that, nope. You have to use Steam Wallet. You have to use Steam Wallet cards for that at this point. It is unfortunate for some, but that really is the only avenue right now. So hopefully for those who are living in Asia, they can have easy access to Steam Wallet because that's your only option right now. So and then we get this linkage. This is the link between everything. This is the link. So, you think Collective Shout has nothing to do with this. You think MasterCard does not have anything to do with this. This, in my opinion, proves, at least tentatively, is proof, more likely than not, that MasterCard had a direct influence on PayPal removing its services from Steam. And by the way, it's not over yet. This is just half the story. I want to introduce you to a little something called, if you read this part, read this last part, the last paragraph of this page, the last paragraph. I need to make some space so that you can see it. Alright. Go all the way down here, this part, and acquire blah 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 blah. An audit at the sole expense of the acquirer by a third party selected by the corporation of the acquirer's acquiring practices. The corporation may list a MasterCard merchant which the corporation determines is non-compliant with this rule on the Match Pro system. What is the Match Pro system? The Match Pro system is called, this is from the official MasterCard website by the way. The Match Pro system is it's what they call the MasterCard Alert to Control High-Risk Merchants. Match Pro. And basically the whole idea is that, read this, this is the most important table. Okay? The whole idea is that partnered banks or acquiring banks, when they terminate their services with a specific corporation or a specific vendor, in this case Steam, for whatever reason that they might have to do it, they might add this Steam's name into this, what is called a Match Pro. A Match Pro is basically a blacklist. Make no mistake, it is basically a blacklist in all but name. It is a blacklist which basically says, hey, future banks, if you want to do business with Steam, think twice. Steam is a high-risk platform with poor reputation. Do not do business with Steam. Because there's a lot of technical information, but boiled down to its most important components, it is a blacklist. It is a blacklist for various businesses and corporations. And your name can only be added to that blacklist if at least one of the partnered banks has pulled their services from that specific corporation. In this perspective, let's just say, for argument's sake, we have reason to believe that 3 or 4 very, very big, non-Western but international banks. Because money can still be dealt with in pounds, dollars, euros, all of that very common currency, but not the smaller currencies from other countries. So let's say one or two, all four of the banks, they cut off services from Steam, and then they are either by choice or by force, wink wink, nudge nudge nudge, by choice or by force, add Valve's name into this Match Pro, which basically means Valve is blacklisted. Which means in the future, it is even harder for banks who are partnered with MasterCard to do business with Valve without basically being pressured by MasterCard or pressured by other banks partnered with MasterCard. What does this mean? What does this mean then? What does this mean? What does this all mean? How about some guesses? You know what? Yeah, I'd guess. Give it a guess. What does it sound like? What does Match Pro sound like? What does it sound like? There is a blacklist, but what is it trying to push? I know that Match Pro is a blacklist, but what is Match Pro's goal? Then, especially right now, 2 words. I'm thinking of 2 words. Well, 3 words. Social credit system. For businesses. You have to understand this, lurkers. You really have to understand this. The reason MasterCard did all of these things, and at this point, it is allegations, okay? We are just alleging. Allegedly. It is a guess, it is a speculation, but of course it's a very educated guess. A very, very educated guess. But let's say, assume for argument's sake that this is 100% correct. Our speculations are 100% correct. What does this mean? It means that MasterCard, through the varyingly willing cooperation with its other partnered banks, and also with the usage of this Match Pro system that MasterCard has brought up, it simply means that they want a social credit system for businesses. If you do things they like, you will keep your services. If you do things they do not like, even though they are 100% legal, even though it's completely legal, there is no laws forbidding it, but they do not like it, they will pressure a bank or two. Say, hey, Wouldn't it be a shame if you suddenly do not have our cooperation with Mercantile? Wouldn't it be a shame that your official bank credit cards are completely useless because our MasterCard services have been withdrawn? Wouldn't that be a shame? And then the banks will be like, okay, what do you want me to do? Then MasterCard will say, simple. I do not like Valve. I do not like Steam. Can you fill in the dots, my dear client? Then the bank will be like, fine. I'll send a notification to Steam. I'll send a notification to PayPal. We will withdraw our services from Steam and PayPal. And we'll just say like, the things that you're selling is going against our brand image or something like that. Happy now? MasterCard would then say, yes, we are very happy. So unless I am proven wrong by someone of better equipped knowledge, yes, I am of the strong opinion that MasterCard had a lot to do with this. But of course, why did MasterCard still want to do this? You lurkers remember, right? I think you lurkers remember. Steam already has. So I'll get rid of this. Why? Why would MasterCard do this? Steam already has their Rule 15. Anything MasterCard Visa doesn't like can't be sold. They already have that. They should be happy, but why? I don't think it's about the money. If it was about the money, if it was about proper risk-averse business, MasterCard would not have done all of this. None of this they would have done. If they wanted gamers' money, they would have left Steam alone. All those thousands of games is money for MasterCard, is money for Visa. All those commissions on Scap, all those commissions on Fentia, all those commissions on Boot or Pixiv Fanbox is all money for MasterCard and Visa. And in this specific case, I would like to present a speculation. A small speculation. Okay? Tell me, you go on X daily or weekly, however often you want, you go on that website, and you start noticing things. Every single post that comes out of MasterCard gets fact-checked by the community notes, and the replies and their posts are ratioed to hell. If they're lucky, they get over 100 likes, but in return they get thousands of comments, thousands of quote posts, all of them roasting them. And then you see in the comment section roast after roast after roast from various gamers. People like Madam Savvy, people like Smash JT, people like Geeks and Gamers. The name goes on, Asmon Gold, Moist Critical. Name after name after name. Gamers, a lot of them gamers, calling you out. This time. And of course, the phone calls. You cannot forget the phone calls. All of the phone calls on the expense of Visa and MasterCard. Every single customer service phone call is on the charge of Visa and MasterCard. They are paying for every phone call. It's starting to paint a bit of a brighter picture, right? Can you imagine how much hate You already see the customer service responses. They start calling people the great word for calling them, not even answering the questions properly, pretending they didn't answer the phone, pretending it's busy, pretending the line is busy, get redirected to this department and then to that department, and then it just get unceremoniously hung up. It starts to paint a picture, right, of how much hate MasterCard likely has for gamers. How much hate. So why do I think they still force banks to pull out from Steam? And as a result, PayPal is pulled out from Steam. MasterCard wants to punish gamers. It might be as simple as that. They want to punish gamers. This was not about money anymore. It's not about money. It's about sending a message to gamers. What do y'all think? Do you think I am too extreme? Do you think it's too exaggerated? It's a bit too comical? Or do you think that's the likely situation? MasterCard, in this case, just like Visa, are taking a lot of flack from gamers, from a lot of people who use Steam, a lot of people who use Steam, and a lot of people who use itch.io. So in retaliation, they double down. They pressure some of their partner banks to withdraw their services from Steam, and thereby withdrawing PayPal from Steam. It is also tiresome, really, also very tiresome. But good luck, MasterCard, good luck. You can't lie your way out of this. People know you had something to do with it, and I just showed, I just showed you how MasterCard influences the decisions of banks. Banks need something like Visa or MasterCard. So here's a little bit of an understanding for you lurkers. Let me just cut this off. Let me just get rid of this. Of course, our preface is always saying in my opinion. Okay? In my opinion. Visa and MasterCard and the banks are codependent. They need the banks as much as the banks need them. How are you going to facilitate and create logistics of transfer of money and credit when there is no bank to give you money to circulate? How do you do that? That is the key problem. And that is the problem with Visa and MasterCard right now. They are too arrogant. Because it's only them. And both of them behave the exact same way at this point in time. It's only them. This is why I hope Elon Musk creates that X payments. Start to convince more and more banks to not rely on Visa or MasterCard and rely on X. This is what I hope. Because The moment more and more banks stop using Visa or MasterCard is the moment that Visa and MasterCard start to lose power. That is the most important point. But so long as there is no third merchant, we are kind of stuck. So yeah, my only real suggestion to slow this down for a long-term solution at least is, if Elon or anyone else, doesn't have to be him, create a new payment processor. A new payment processor, a way to handle the logistics of money and credit. That is as good as Visa and MasterCard. I suggest call your banks, give feedback, and say, why don't you consider using these new merchants rather than the usual Visa MasterCard thing? It's obvious. They want to impose their own subjective desires on the economic system, the financial system. It is so obvious. They can lie all they want. And honestly, I prefer them to be honest. At least if they were honest, saying, yes, there are some things we do not like. And therefore, we are going to use all our power to make sure you can never buy them. And let's be honest. Don't lie to people's faces. Don't lie to people's faces that is about protecting the brand, or lie to people's faces about like, we only target illegal materials. Don't BS me. MasterCard and Visa has to understand. They are the reason they are getting bad PR. And they do this with PayPal and Steam. It's just them being like children, throwing a fit and a tantrum that their own actions created damage for themselves, but they will not accept it. They do not accept it. So they lash it out at you. They lash it out at you. Normal consumers, gamers, artists, and art commissioners. They lash out at you. They lash out at you for the mistakes they made. Like children. Like petty kids who got upset that they were caught bullying someone else. That they were caught bullying someone and just got reprimanded. So they do it worse. At the end of the day, it's social credit. They want their own social credit system. They want everyone to say, yes, sir, thank you, sir. They want everyone to say, yes, master, thank you, master. They want you to thank them for graciously allowing some things to be purchased, even though many things are not purchasable. And thank goodness Steam came out and said it. And I suspect, this is my opinion, I suspect, okay? I suspect it is also partially to punish Steam, punish Gaben, punish Valve, because Valve did reply. Valve told Kotaku, Valve told Rock Paper Shotgun about what MasterCard and Visa are doing behind the scenes. They hope that Steam will keep quiet about it, but Steam did not. And this is why MasterCard right now is punishing Steam. This is not fair. This is not how a supposed impartial, borderline social utility, public utility, corporation services is supposed to behave. They only restrict purchases and sales if it is illegal or it is directly financially harmful to them. Not because they do not like something. That is not how they should behave.